Konnichiwa minasan, and welcome to the class in the second lecture series on Introduction to Japanese Language and Culture. So, you know, we have done expressions, greetings, idioms earlier. We have learnt restaurant expressions, we have learnt home expressions. So, today also we will do some new expressions and also some old ones. You see, expressions, greetings, idioms, phrases, they are all very important and are an integral part of any community, any culture. Why do we say that? Because, well, you get to know the people, you get to know their lifestyle, how they live, what they eat, how they talk, what is their interaction method. So, all these things you get to know through idioms and phrases and greetings. Especially with greetings, you also have to keep in mind the body language, how you interact, what your expressions are, how you use your hands, your body to communicate. So, well, you will see some new expressions today, but before that we have a kaiwa as I always do, and there are some expressions there. Now, see how many you can recognize, how many you can catch in the kaiwa, and then we will see all those later.
ミラは田中さんのお宅に行きました。ごめんください。ミラです。
あ、ミラさん、いらっしゃい。
こんにちは。
どうぞ、中にお入りください。
どうもありがとう。お邪魔します。靴はここでいいですか？
いいえ、靴はあそこで脱いでください。あそこの下駄箱にあるスリッパを使ってください。
はい、ありがとうございます。
So, you can see the kaiwa is between Mira and Tanaka, and Mira has gone to Tanaka-san's house and otaku de. Now, my house is uchi, or any house is uchi, but somebody from your office or in a formal situation where you want to show respect, where you want to be very polite, you would say otaku. Otaku is also uchi, but used for others. So, over here you can see Mira goes over there and she says, Gomen kudasai, Mira desu. Ah, Mira-san, irashai. So, you will see always intonation is rising. Irashai means welcome, and Gomen kudasai means knock knock, is someone there. Konnichiwa, depending on the time of the day, it could be evening also. So, if it is evening, then konbanwa, or if it is morning, then ohayo gozaimasu. So, dozo naka ni ohairi kudasai, please come inside. Domo arigato, ojama shimasu, I am coming in, I am intruding now. So, kutsu wa koko de, over here. Ii desu ka? She is asking a question. Is kutsu all right over here? Should I remove my shoes and put it over here? Koko de, place de. Iie, kutsu wa asoko ni nuide kudasai. Over there, please remove them. Nugimasu. Nugimasu or nugu is actually to remove clothes. Over here, nugimasu is also used for now shoes. Asoko no getabako ni aru slippa o tsukatte kudasai. Getabako is a small cupboard, ni aru slippa. Place ni arimasu. You have done it earlier. So, getabako ni aru slippa. slipper which is in the geta bako o tsukatte kudasai. Hai, arigatou gozaimasu. So, this is a very, very simple kaiwa which I am sure when you go over it on your own you will understand, but there are some new expressions, some old ones. Let us see what they are, and there is some grammar which I am going to tell you right now. So, now when we meet someone, we are courteous and we are pleasant to them. Can you tell me why we do that? Well, one reason is that you want to leave a good impression, and the second reason is that you want to be comfortable yourself, and you also want the other person to be equally comfortable. So, by using these expressions and greetings in conversation, it helps to open up easily, it helps to break the ice between the listener and the speaker, and you are more relaxed. It gives you confidence when you are doing conversation, and also you feel more confident because you know the language, you understand the language. So, today we will learn some new expressions to be used when you go visiting somebody. Some polite, some informal, some humble and some formal expressions which are actually used in daily conversation by the Japanese. So, let us see what they are. Before that, well, you have your kanji. This is otaku, and the kanji for taku is very, very simple and like this. So, once again like this, this and this, taku. Then there was a kanji last time which I could not do with you, which was nani. Now, there is another one over here, tsukau, tsukau. How will you write this kanji? Very simple, like this. Then make a kuchi like this, cut it and over here. Tsukau. Once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you cut it from here, 8. Tsukau. Practice these at home and you will be able to recognize them very easily. So, now when you go to somebody's house, what do you do generally? First thing that you will do would be to knock. So, knock knock. Is someone there? So, how will you say that in Japanese? Well, dareka imasu ka? Is someone there? Or a formal way to ask would be gomen kudasai, and the intonation is rising, which you will see just now, and you just call out to the person, you speak out loudly and say, is someone there? Knock knock, is someone there? And if someone is inside, they will say hi, or you can call out again. So, let us see what it is. So, over here you can see dareka imasu ka. Now, dare is used for person and this ka should be actually here. It is one word, dare and ka. You have done nanika. Remember doing this earlier? Nanika means something. Over here and over here, this ka is not a question particle. So, makes one word which means something. Dareka will mean someone. Dareka imasu ka is someone there. You can see over here, knock knock, and then peep in, or just from outside you can say dareka imasu ka, very, very informally. Now, the formal expression is gomen kudasai. I have written it separately for you to be able to read, but actually it is written like this, joint and written. So, gomen kudasai, and intonation is rising. So, means please, is someone there. It can also be used for peeping, looking inside. You come inside and then you say gomen kudasai, I am here, is someone there, that kind of expression. Also you can use it in offices. When you enter somebody's office or when you enter a room, then you can say gomen kudasai. Now we had this kanji over there. Otaku I just told you. Otaku is simple like this. Uchi you have done earlier. What is the kanji for uchi? Same thing you make over here. This signifies roof actually. And like this, make one over here like this, 1, 2 and then uchi. Uchi. So remember this, do the practice. Some point I will also give you the stroke order. There is another kanji over here which is dare. Dare is a simple kanji because you have done both these earlier. Where have you done? This is you to speak, and where did you use this one? Can someone tell me? Well, you used it in nichiyobi, yobi actually. Nichi, yo and like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So, it is a total of 8. Once again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 like this. So, when you join this part and this part, it becomes dare. You see over here like this. Dare. Of course, it should be a little closer, so it will look more proportionate. So, you have otaku, you have uchi and you have dare. Like this, dare. 3 kanjis for you. You may not be able to write dare immediately or maybe uchi immediately, but I am sure you can write otaku and at least recognize these two when you see them. Now, after the initial greeting, just visualize this. After the initial greeting, which will naturally depend on the time of the day, it could be konnichiwa, it could be ohayo gozaimasu, it could be konbanwa, and the first greeting which is gomen kudasai, where you announce that you have come and you are looking for someone. The person is invited inside or he comes inside. So, obviously, the host who is inside will welcome the guest and will call the person inside the house. So, what is the expression at that time? You have seen this picture earlier as well. So, now this lady is inside over here, Tanaka-san has come to meet her, this is the door, he enters and then she is going to invite him in the house. At this point, what does she say to Tanaka-san? Let us see. Irashai is one, very simple. Irashai, Tanaka-san, irashai. It's nice you came. Welcome to my house. That is over here. She has not called him inside as yet. She has just welcomed him. Now, yoku irashaimashita. She could also say, oh, it's so nice of you to have come so far to my house. I am extremely happy. You are most welcome. Till here. Still she has not called him inside in the true Japanese sense. So, she is just welcoming him. So, what is it? Again, toi tokoro made irashite itadaite arigatou gozaimasu. So, toi is far, very, very formal expression. Toi tokoro is place, made till, irashite you came and itadaite I received the favor. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you for coming so far. I am greatly obliged. Very, very formal. And this expression would generally be used in a very formal situation and especially when the guests are a little older. Not somebody who is young, you will not generally use this. Then waza waza irashite itadaite arigatou gozaimashita. So, specially you have come for me. Thank you very much. So, these are some of the expressions that she is going to use over here just to welcome him, depending on who is welcoming whom, how formal the situation is, and whether the host is older than the guest or younger than the guest. So, depends on all of that. You can see over here. Now, something very cultural, the lady is standing over here, the shoes are here, you could see those two shoes here. Now, is he going to wear his shoes and come inside? Definitely Tanaka-san will not do that. He has to remove his shoes. You heard in the kaiwa as well, he is supposed to remove his shoes, put them properly over here, wear these shoes and then go inside. And please remember, this is very, very important that you put your shoes properly. You do not just leave them anywhere lying like that. You are supposed to keep them properly together and facing the door, so that when you come out, you just step into your shoes and say thank you and move out. So, remember that. I will try to find a picture and show you how it is done. Now, there is another way to welcome which is the most formal way, and that is yokoso. And in a formal situation, when you are being very, very humble, and it means that I am honored that you have come to my house. What is the body language? Body language is that you bow like this properly and then you say yokoso, that you came so far, I am greatly honored and obliged. If you are wearing a kimono, you have your hands here, please see that all the time, your hands are over here and you are slightly bowing with a smile. You can see these two as well. This is a typical office picture where the office employees are all folded hands and welcoming the guest. This expression is generally used in offices or when you are leaving the country at the airport. You can see a lot of people doing that. Now, Tanaka-san is inside, as you just now saw in the picture, and the lady is waiting for Tanaka-san to come in. She is about to welcome him. So, after all the initial welcome by the host has been done, she asks him to come inside. So, both the guest and the host, they will use some expressions. So, one of the simple and very informal expression that the host is going to use for the guest is dozo, that please come, very, very informal. But what are the other expressions? Let us see. So, dozo kochira e. Now, this kochira e means follow me or please come this way, and this is generally done when you show direction, that come in this direction. You do use this at home when you tell the guest that this is the way to the drawing room or to the inner part of my house. So, please follow me is the expression. This could be one very informal way of saying please come inside. Now, another way of saying that please come inside and in a polite way would be dozo o hairi kudasai. Hairi mas. Hairu is the verb. Please come inside. Or dozo haite kudasai. Please come inside. But over here we have o, which is honorific, and we change the mas form, this verb, into a noun and put o over here. O hairi kudasai. Please come inside. Then you could also say dozo agatte kudasai. What does this mean? Haite kudasai. So, now the host says agatte kudasai, meaning please step up. You have Tanaka-san standing over here. These are the slippers. She says, please come up. Agatte kudasai. You can see very clearly that the kanji used for agatte kudasai is this one. And what does this kanji mean? This means ue, up. So, please step up is what it means. Generally, Japanese houses, it's very typical that where you keep your shoes when you enter the house over here, it's a little like this and you step up and then go in the house. Now, this is one way of saying dozo agatte kudasai to somebody who is younger to you. To somebody who is your age or in a formal situation or older to you, then you would say dozo o agari kudasai. And the pronunciation is a little nasal. O agari kudasai is what it is. Kanji is the same, kanji does not change. O becomes honorific, mas form as I told you earlier is removed and you make a noun out of the verb and put kudasai. And it is polite and you are inviting the person inside, please come inside, please step up and come inside. Leave your shoes over here, wear these shoes and come inside. Another simple way of saying dozo naka ni hairi kudasai or naka ni dozo, informal. Naka ni dozo like dozo kochira e or dozo haitte kudasai or dozo agatte kudasai without using the o over here. Now you have been called inside and before entering the house you will generally say something because the host has invited you and you are going in. When the host calls you inside, it is o hairi kudasai or o agari kudasai. But when the guest enters, another expression is used before he enters the house. So, what is that expression? That is ojama shimasu. Now, you have done shitsure shimasu earlier if you remember when you enter somebody's room. You say shitsure shimasu that I am intruding. Ojama shimasu is also exactly the same, meaning I am intruding on your privacy, I am going to be taking your time, I am coming in your way. Now, what are the situations you will use ojama shimasu? Well, when entering a room or office, as I have told you earlier, interrupting a conversation, two people are talking and you want to say something, so you say ojama shimasu, or you disturb someone when they are busy. So, ojama shimasu, I am sorry, I am disturbing you, I am going to be taking your time. So, these are some of the situations where you will use ojama shimasu. Jama itself means I am coming in your way, I am disturbing you. For example, if your elder brother is studying and you keep running around with a ball in the same room, then you are actually disturbing him. So, he can always say jama shinai de, do not come in my way, let me concentrate. So, well, let us see, okay, we have it right here, jama shinai de, that is do not come in my way, do not trouble me, do not intrude like this, do not disturb me, any of this can be used. Then jama shite sumimasen, jama shite sumimasen, I am sorry I troubled you, I came in your way, I disturbed you. After you have talked to the person and you feel okay, this was not the right time to come and discuss something like this with him or her. So, jama shite sumimasen. You go to your boss and he is busy, but you need to talk to him. So, sumimasen o jama shite mo ii desu ka? You can ask like this. Now, koko wa jama dakara kore o soko ni oite kudasai. Something is over here. Koko wa jama dakara kore. From kore you can understand that it is a thing. So, koko wa jama dakara, over here it is coming in the way. So, thus therefore, soko ni oite kudasai, please keep it over there. Now you have this picture also over here. This person is entering the room, they are all talking, all of a sudden they start looking at him. So what does he say? Ojama shimasu. Ojama shite sumimasen. That I have just entered like this without knocking probably. So sumimasen. Now you have also done shitsure shimasu like this, where you sneeze or you break the line and you go forward and you use shitsure shimasu. So, well, you can also use ojama shimasu in this place. Over here the meaning will not change that much. Now let us see how ojama shimasu and shitsure shimasu can be interchanged and how there are certain places where you cannot interchange. So, shitsure shimasu, very clear, excuse me, and you can say ojama shimasu. When you enter a room or when you enter a meeting or when somebody is talking and you say shitsure shimasu, that is okay. But not for sorry, you cannot say sorry ojama shimasu as you can use this one shitsure shimasu. You cannot say for sorry ojama shimasu, no, you cannot use it. Then shitsure shimashita, past tense, ojama shimashita, absolutely correct, you can use both in a situation where you are using it as excuse me. Now, osaki ni shitsure shimasu, you have done this expression when you are in office and you are leaving and people are still working, you are going before them. So, what do you say? Osaki ni, before you, shitsure shimasu, please excuse me. Can you say ojama shimasu, osaki ni ojama shimasu? Jama means intruding. So, you cannot use ojama over shimasu over here, it cannot be used. Then shitsure itashimasu. Now, this is an expression which is generally used when you are parting from somebody or you are talking on phone and your talk is over and you want to say bye. So, shitsure itashimasu is used and not ojama itashimasu. No, that is not used. It is incorrect if you use ojama shimasu over here. Then shitsure desu ga, this means I am sorry but, so I am sorry, excuse me but, and you have to say something. So, will you say ojama shimasu desu ga? It does not work over here with ojama shimasu also. Wherever you have star, you will see that ojama will not work over here, it will be incorrect. Then shitsure, shitsure is actually I am being very rude, I am sorry. For example, if you step on somebody's foot, you would say shitsure shimashita. Now, there is another expression which says shitsure na koto. So, there are times when you land up doing something which is very rude or maybe improper. So, shitsure na koto, something which is improper. Sumimasen, shitsure na koto o shimashita. I did something which I should not have done, something which was very rude or improper. So, you cannot use ojama shimasu over here again because it means I am intruding. So, you can see now the difference very clearly where to use ojama shimasu and where to use shitsure shimasu. Now, so before we move to the next part of the kaiwa, in our last lesson we learnt an expression moshiwake arimasen. It basically means my sincere apologies. Now, there are many ways you can say sorry. So, let us see what are the different ways you can use sorry. Now, simple sorry that you have done is gomenasai, I am sorry, but please remember this is to be used in informal situations to juniors at home, and it is not a office expression for saying sorry. Generally this is not used. This is used with colleagues, people junior, at home, informal situations. Then you have sumimasen, which is also informal but can be used anywhere generally, and that is what you do. It is sorry as well as excuse me. The formal part of sumimasen, which is used at offices, is sumimasen deshita. I am sorry for what I have done. Sumimasen deshita, because obviously you would have done something and then you are apologizing. So, sumimasen deshita, that is formal. Fold your hands, stand straight and bow, and then you say sumimasen deshita, not a flippant sumimasen. That is to be used with friends. Now, another formal way of saying sorry is moshiwake arimasen. I am sorry, I am unable to change what has happened, but I am very, very saddened by what has happened. So, please forgive me, moshiwake arimasen, where you actually feel that you are also guilty of having done something which is inexcusable. So, moshiwake arimasen, and moshiwake means absolutely, totally, indeed, and shows degree. Moshiwake arimasen, I am very, very sorry. Now, if you have done something really, really unforgivable, you also feel very guilty about what has happened. You feel saddened by what has happened or what you did. Then how are you going to apologize? So, actually you go down on your knees if you are really, really saddened and very sorry, apologetic about your rudeness, then makoto ni moshiwake arimasen. I am very, 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 very sorry, to a great extent, degree of guilt. Is it all right? So, these are expressions that you should learn and see the difference. Most of the time as foreigners we use this or this. Moshiwake arimasen is also used. I can give you an example. For example, you keep somebody waiting at the station, you have to go together for a movie and you get late, and when you come the train has already gone. So, you say moshiwake arimasen, sumimasen, hontou ni gomenasai. That kind of expressions are used. Then moshiwake arimasen is makoto ni, then makoto ni is also used with makoto ni arigato gozaimashita, when you are actually very, very grateful for something that someone has done for you. Then makoto ni arigato gozaimashita. From the bottom of my heart, I am extremely honored and grateful. Now, let us read the second part of the kaiwa. It has more expressions for you. So, Mira enters the house. Mira wa uchi ni hairimashita. So, the conversation goes on.
ミラはうちに入りました。ああ、立派なうちですね。
お父さんにもらいました。古いけど広くてきれいです。お父さんは45年前にこの家を建てました。
日本のうちは中から初めてです。
ああ、そうですか。まあ、皆さんどうぞお座りください。
ありがとう。どうぞつまらないものですが使ってください。
何ですか？
これは南インドからのスパイスです。どうぞ。
ああ、わざわざどうもありがとうございます。私はインド料理が大好きです。2年前にインドに行った時にたくさんスパイスを持ってきました。じゃあ遠慮なくいただきます。
どうぞ使ってください。
はい、ありがとう。
Ah, rippa na uchi desu ne. Rippa na, na adjective, rippa na uchi. It's a very, very grand house. Shujin no otou-san ni moraimashita. I received from my father-in-law. Furui kedo, it's old but hirokute kirei desu. Otou-san wa 45 nen mae ni kono uchi o tatemashita. So, now let us see what tatemasu means. But before tatemasu, we had kirei na uchi. Noun na desu. We can also say uchi wa kirei desu. So, there is no na over here if you are using it with a verb. If noun is going to come, then na is going to be used. Similarly, when you join hiroi plus another adjective, it could be na, it could be I, then this hiroi is hirokute kirei is what was given. This means and. We have done this earlier, so let us see what tateru means. Tatemashita is tateru. So, well, tateru is something which you put like this and you build, basically used for construction. So, you will use prefabricated something which is already there and join those and try to build, that is tateru. And skuru is something that you make. So, tateru is build and skuru is make. You have something, some raw material is there with you and you try to produce something out of that raw material. Over here for building already something is there and you just join it or put one on top of the other like this and you build. That is the difference. So, well, let us see what else we have in our kaiwa. Nihon no uchi wa naka kara hajimete desu. First time, Nihon no uchi wa naka kara hajimete desu. First time I am in a Japanese house. Mirasan dozo o suwari kudasai. Suwaru is the verb. Mas form, suwari, suwari, mas, and remove the mas and put kudasai. So, o suwari kudasai, very, very polite using a verb. Dozo, permission given. Arigato. Dozo, tsumaranai mono desu ga tsukatte kudasai. Now, this is another phrase which is used when you give presents in Japan for tanjobi, for kekkonshiki, for anything, wherever you want to give something to someone. Well, you will use this tsumaranai mono desu ga. Tsumaranai means it is something small, not of great consequence. Tsumaranai mono desu ga, it is a small thing, but please tsukatte kudasai. But please use it. So, Tanaka-san says, nan desu ka? And it is a very common thing that the Japanese will open what you have right in front of you and appreciate it as well. So, kore wa Minami Indo kara no spice desu. So, Minami Indo kara, from Minami Indo. How will you show connection between this and this? By no. So, kore wa Minami Indo kara no spice desu, making your language better. Waza waza arigatou gozaimasu. Watashi wa Indo ryori ga daisuki desu. Ga is for ski. 2年前にインドに行った時に there are 3 knees over here now たくさんスパイスを持ってきました。When I was in India 2 years back, I bought a lot of spices with me. じゃあ遠慮なくいただきます。I will receive it and thank you very much for getting it for me. So, a lot of expressions, we will do them right away. Now, this is a custom that the guest will get something in Japan for the host, and the phrase you saw just now is tsumaranai mono desu ga dozo meshiagatte kudasai. Meshiagaru. Meshiagaru is polite for taberu. So, because you are giving it to somebody, so tabete kudasai will be a little informal. So, meshiagatte kudasai. If it is something to eat, for example, cake or pastries or chocolates or something, then meshiagatte kudasai. Otherwise, dozo tsukatte kudasai. Please use it. Tsumaranai mono is a small thing. It is not something very big, it is something very small. So, please use it. Now, you have it here in the script and some kanjis are there. Very quickly I want to do the kanjis. This is furui, ju and kuchi, furui. Then this is hiroi, we did it last time also, hiroi. Then nen also we did last time and nen. Then mai, it is a straight line, you make a tsuki, that is month, and like this, mai. These I am revising again and again so that you keep looking at them and you are able to recognize them quickly. Now, this is me and this is miru to see. This is I, which is me, and miru to see. Then naka is there, naka like this, and shujin is here, shu and jin over here, shujin, husband, and this is naka is inside. Soto you have already done like this, soto, which is outside. I think a lot of kanjis. Okay. There is one more which is daisuki, dai and suki. So, you can remember this, I like it very much. Now, there was a word over here, waza waza, specially expresses gratitude, specially for me, a way to show appreciation that somebody has done something specially for you. So, waza waza, waza waza watashi no tame ni tsukurimashita, arigatou gozaimasu. So, you can look at the examples, waza waza watashi no tame ni yatte kuremashita, you did something for me and I received the favor. Waza waza, specially. Watashi no tame ni, for me. Waza waza watashi no tame ni tsukurimashita ka? Have you really made this cake for me? So, specially for me, waza waza. You have taken the trouble to make something for me. Waza waza uchi ni konakute mo ii desu yo. It's all right if you do not come to my house. You don't have to come to my house specially. Now, this is waza waza. If I just say waza, what does it mean? Waza means technique. Waza means some kind of technique you have used, some special method you have used to make a certain thing. Waza o tsukatte koyu koto o yarimashita. I used some kind of technique and then I did this. So, these are two different things. Waza waza means specially and just waza means technique or style or method, a special method. Now, ni nen mai ni Indo ni itta toki ni. So, we have 3 ni's over here. What does it mean? Ni nen mai ni. So, for time, rokuji ni. Now, place ni or place a. So, ni shows purpose, must have gone for ryoko, for visiting, itta toki ni, at that time. So, specific time. Is it all right? So, we have 3 ni's over here used differently, time ni, rokuji ni, Indo ni or Tokyo ni. Tokyo ni ikimashita, Indo ni ikimashita, or 3 nen mai ni tomodachi ni aimashita. So, that is how you will use particle ni. Now, there was also taksan over there. Taksan is a noun, but you will remember that it is used as an adverb. You will see how. Taksan means lots as is given over here. It is used generally where you can count whatever the amount is. You can measure the amount, you can see it physically. Kodomo wa takusan shitsumon o shimasu. I generally don't write wo, I write o. In lot of books you will see wo written in Roman and sometimes o is also written. You will see o also. I prefer o, but this is just to show you that wo is also o. Kodomo wa takusan shitsumon o shimasu. Children ask a lot of questions. Takusan is lot. Watashi wa takusan tabemashita. I ate a lot. So, you know what quantity you ate. Then A is asking, Shukudai owarimashita ka? Shukudai wa owarimashita ka? Iie, mada takusan arimasu. There is still lots to do. You have done mo also over here. Shukudai wa mo owarimashita ka? Have you finished your shukudai now? Iie, mada desu. Not yet. You did it in your last class. Mada takusan arimasu. There is still lots there or left. Now, what is yoku and takusan? Yoku is also an adverb and takusan is used as an adverb, though it is a noun. Both show quantity. Yoku shows frequency or degree and takusan shows amount. So, well, let us see. Watashi wa yoku tabemashita. Tanaka-san wa yoku tabemasu ne. Tanaka-san wa yoku tabemasu ne. You eat a lot, isn't it? So, well, the lot amount is not clear how much, but he is saying that Tanaka-san, you eat a lot. Then Tanaka-san wa yoku tabemashita. He ate a lot. This is only one time when he ate a lot. Yoku tabemashita. Again, the quantity is not known, but yes, if it is yoku, then it is lots. So, lot of food you ate, but this is one time and this is a general statement with yoku and takusan. So, you can in one way say that takusan you can measure, whereas yoku you cannot measure, you cannot see, you can only guess. Now, there was another phrase which was enryo. Enryo naku itadakimasu. Without being formal, I will take your present. So, what does enryo mean? Enryo means to restrain, to be reserved, to be discreet. So, it comes as a phrase. Enryo shinai de ne, don't bother so much, don't be so formal. Enryo shinai de tsukatte kudasai.
Without hesitation.
Just use it. Then enryo naku itadakimasu. Without being formal, I will take it from you and use it. So, these are some of the phrases that are there in the lesson. You can go over the phrases and try to use them whenever you are in such a situation. Now, you have done this hito kanji. Today it is hairu. So, it is just the other way round, hairu or ireru, which is to pour. Hairu is enter and this is pour. So, another kanji is iri guchi. Iri guchi. Now, new gaku. New gaku. New gaku means entering school. So, this kanji is similar for these two verbs here. One means to enter and one means to pour. Iriguchi is entrance. Then ire mono, ire and mono, mono. You've done the kanji for mono. It's a simple kanji like this and then like this, mono. You have done other words with mono as well, tabe mono, nomi mono, uri mono. So, go over those and do mono. And kanjis that you cannot write, you don't have to write, just try to recognize them. So, there is lots more, but we will not do that today, we will do it next time. And with this, I would like to finish our class today. I hope you could understand all the expressions that we did. I wanted to do a kotowaza also with you, but there is no time. So, we will try to do it next time. Practice this, make sentences and come prepared for your next class. The next class also has a lot of expressions for you, some new, some old. Thank you very much. Mata aimashou. じゃあね、皆さんありがとうございます。